back in the 1960s, old ones, new ones, loved ones, neglected ones. This is a loved one. Back in the 1960s, we played all sorts of bands on this station. Well, when I say this station, I mean Radio 6. You may be listening to us in all sorts of other places like TD1, Hospital Radio Reading, or Cotswold FM, or KWQQ, PCJ, World FM. But on Radio 6, back in the 60s, as we do now, we played new bands and bands that weren't getting exposure on other radio stations. And one of our favourite bands was a band called Katch 22. And they had an album that came out in 1968 called It's Soft Rock and All Sorts. And a track from that got into Radio 6's top 30 and got up to number 1 and was there for a good number of weeks, right the way through the summer and early autumn of 1968. It's windy.
Who's peeping out from under a stairway, calling a name that's lighter than air? Who's bending down to give me a rainbow? Everyone knows it's windy. Who's creeping down the streets of the city, smiling at everybody she sees? Who's reaching out to capture a moment? Everyone knows it's windy. And windy has stormy eyes that flash at the sound of light. And windy has wings to fly above the clouds. Above the clouds. Above the clouds. And windy has stormy eyes that flash at the sound of light. And windy has wings to fly above the clouds. Above the clouds. Above the clouds. Who's creeping down the streets of the city, smiling at everybody she sees? Who's reaching out to capture a moment? Everyone knows it's windy. Of the city, smiling at everybody she sees. Who's reaching out to capture a moment? Everyone knows it's windy. Who's creeping down the streets of the city, smiling at everybody she sees? Who's reaching out to capture a moment? Everyone knows it's windy. Who's creeping down the streets of the city, smiling at everybody she sees? Who's reaching out to capture a moment? Everyone knows it's windy.
Radio 6.
Just played another hit from yesterday.
Katch 22, making an exceedingly good cover version of something that was originally recorded by the Association. That was Windy from 1968. Whatever happened to Katch 22? We will find out next week, because Mike Eastman, who set up the band and who was the lead guitarist, Mike Eastman is my guest next week on the show. So we'll be having a lot more Katch 22 music next week and some surprises for you. That's all we have time for this week. I hope you'll join me at the same time next week when we will have more surprises for you, including our special guest Mike Eastman, who will be on the line from the south of England, talking about Katch 22. And why are we resurrecting a band who made their last record 44 years ago? You'll find out next week. Till then, from me, Jenny Curry, bye for now. Have a nice week.
A Radio 6 international production from Scotland.